The bold and the beautiful story with Will, Electra, and Dylan's storyline sure is getting messy. But the messier it gets, the more we wonder whether or not Will would be better off with Dylan. Sure, Electra is his girlfriend, but we're learning things about Dylan that make her seem more compatible with Will than Electra might be. Maybe Dylan's the girl who is better suited for the Spencer heir in the long run? The bold and the beautiful's Electra has been taking heat from fans about being paranoid and a mean girl for the way she snapped at Dylan and banished her from spending time in the beach house with Will. Yes, she was harsh, but maybe we should show her some grace and understanding. After all, she and Will went through a hell of a time when they were dealing with two predators, first Remy and then Luna. Electra even made an indirect comment about it to Dylan when she referred to a friend whom she trusted at the time. Taking all of that into consideration, one B&B fan suggested that maybe Electra should have arranged for Dylan to stay in Eric's guest house instead of the room over Will's beach house. That makes sense, but then we wouldn't have the scenario that's playing out now. We would have no story. In any case, Dylan has one major advantage over Electra. She's more multifaceted in many ways. Not only is she kind and caring, but she also has a great rapport with children. She and Will had a lot of fun spending time with Hayes and keeping him busy while Finn was at the hospital. Dylan is a natural with kids, given that she's a teacher, and she also has an art background. She is multi-talented. Why didn't Will ask her to show him some of her artwork? We have yet to see it. And who knew that she was also a dancer? That makes us wonder, is she applying for any dancing jobs? Maybe she should. In Los Angeles, there must be plenty of opportunities. She has 3 fields she can pursue: teaching, art, and dancing. Sure, Electra is talented at creating jewelry, but what else have we really learned about her? Does she have any other talents or interests? Will is a nice guy, but let's face it, he's also a little dopey. Didn't he realize that by turning on the music, he just might wake up Hayes? He was so focused on wanting to see Dylan dance that he didn't think of it. It's mighty interesting that he seems to be having more fun with Dylan than he's ever had with Electra in the entire time they've been dating. He just seems more alive when he's with Dylan. And how about the way he opened up to her about the horrors that Luna put him through? It was downright awe-inspiring. We saw a tearful Will, a young man who wasn't afraid to show his vulnerable side. He even shared how disappointed he was that his dad, Bill, cheated on his mom, Katie, with his Aunt Brooke. Women often say that they want men to be more expressive, to show more emotion. They shouldn't be afraid to cry. And holy moly, Will wasn't afraid at all, not in front of Dylan. He let it all out, and she was very compassionate and empathetic. Maybe Will's attention to her is only friendly and innocent, but doesn't he notice the looks she keeps giving him? Wake up, Will! She is into you in a big way! This is becoming an extremely messy situation, and he's not helping matters that he doesn't realize it. But we just get this feeling that once Electra comes home, we're going to see Will flash back to Dylan dancing for him and Dylan lending him a caring ear. And that means we will have ourselves an honest-to-goodness triangle. We've seen the rich boy, poor girl trope used countless times in movies and soaps throughout the years. But if sparks continue to fly between Will and Dylan on The Bold and the Beautiful, and if he eventually chooses her over Electra, then we don't think the difference in their backgrounds will be a problem for them. We don't believe that the Spencers will act snooty and look down their noses at Dylan. Dollar Bill may be a billionaire now, but he did not grow up in a wealthy environment, and neither did Katie. She empathized with Dylan's homeless situation and joblessness when Will told her about it. Katie confessed that she herself grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money, so she could relate to Dylan's predicament. So, what do you think, B&B fans? Is Dylan a better match for Will than Electra? Tell us your opinions in the comments section. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers for Friday, January 30th reveal that Ivy Forrester will warn Dylan to leave LA while Taylor Hayes finds that she can't resist Deacon Sharp. After Ivy spent all that time spying on Dylan and Will Spencer, she was outraged over how improper their time together was. Ivy stuck around after Dylan headed up to the guest room above the garage and caught her off guard. Now Ivy's ready to unleash the rage that's been building. Ivy has no intention of letting Dylan steal Electra Forrester's boyfriend, so she'll deliver an order on Friday's B&B episode. Once Ivy warns Dylan that she needs to leave Los Angeles right away, Dylan will be taken aback. Ivy will insist Electra doesn't need this kind of drama in her life and push Dylan to remove herself from the equation before she makes things worse. While Ivy rips into Dylan and tries to get rid of her, Deacon and Taylor will get swept up in a close moment together. It looks like Taylor and Deacon won't be able to resist sharing a kiss, so they may lock lips for real this time around. As for Sheila Sharp, she'll continue to view Taylor as the answer to all her marriage problems. Things aren't perfect, but Sheila still feels like her relationship is back on track thanks to Taylor's therapy sessions with Deacon. In reality, Deacon is falling hard for Taylor and struggling with his waning interest in Sheila. At this point, Deacon mostly just views Sheila as a wild card that he has to stop from spiraling out of control and hurting anyone ever again, especially Taylor. Sheila would lose it if she knew about Taylor and Deacon's growing connection, so he'll do everything he can to keep his wife in the dark on that news. Of course, no matter how much Deacon wants to protect Taylor, it's just a matter of time Sheila discovers their true bond and unleashes her wrath. The Bold and the Beautiful, spoilers say Deacon may have to make some updates to his Sheila tactics along the way, so stay tuned. The Bold and the Beautiful, spoilers for January 30th, 26, features Sheila expressing gratitude to Taylor for saving her marriage, and Ivy demanding that Dylan leave town. On Thursday's all-new episode, Ivy lurked in the bushes just long enough to get the wrong idea about what was happening between Will and Dylan. Ivy has become the keeper of all things proper, and their behavior was anything but. After the coast was clear, and Dylan was finally alone and away from Will and Hayes, Ivy made her presence felt. She walked directly into Dylan's room and accused her of trying to steal Electra's boyfriend. Friday's episode will further explore the fallout of Ivy's confrontation, but this time, she has demands. Ivy orders Dylan to leave town immediately, which to her is her duty as the protective aunt. However, this might be a step too far. Ivy doesn't have any concrete proof that anything nefarious is going down between Will and Dylan. She's made it her mission to be the devil in Electra's ear, taking every opportunity to warn her about remaining with Will. Ivy did it with Luna, and she's doing the same thing with Dylan. How Dylan reacts to Ivy's demand will determine the fate of Will and Electra's relationship. If anything, it was Will who consistently pushed for Dylan to hang out with him at the main house. Every time that Dylan attempted to give him space and respect Electra's boundaries, Will encouraged her to stay. Will doesn't seem too concerned with Electra's rules, and judging by the way that he broke down in front of Dylan, he values her as a safe space in his life. Sheila has credited Taylor with saving her marriage to Deacon since the moment that he agreed to take her back. Taylor has repeatedly asked Sheila to stop placing all the praise on her to keep their marriage afloat, but those requests have been entirely ignored. Sheila has herself convinced that Taylor is the best thing to happen to her and Deacon's relationship, and she remains completely oblivious to what's happening between Taylor and Deacon. Deacon has tried to fight his feelings for as long as he could, but despite Steffi's best efforts, he confessed his feelings for Taylor. On Friday's episode, Sheila once again expresses gratitude to Taylor for saving her marriage, even though viewers had already witnessed Deacon ask Taylor out on a date. This married man seems to be with his wife to keep her from lashing out against everyone in a dangerous manner. Deacon's lack of faith in Sheila's ability to handle a divorce speaks volumes about why they never should have reconciled in the first place. Any genuine changes Sheila makes in her life are largely ignored by everyone, and no amount of talking will ever get Hope and Deke to support the union. Taylor is coming across as Deacon's get-out-of-marriage-free card, and so far, it's working. Deacon's inching closer and closer to truly accepting that his relationship with Sheila is past its expiration date. However, the closer he and Taylor grow, the more convinced Sheila becomes that Taylor is the best thing to happen to her husband. Something has to give, and everyone should be wary of Sheila's dark side. The Bold and the Beautiful, spoilers hint that Thomas Forrester may sound the alarm over a new soap pairing. Will Thomas come blowing back into Los Angeles and see some warning signs? Although Thomas returned to Hope Logan Spencer's design team, he opted to keep living in Paris. Thomas didn't want to uproot Douglas Forrester from his life there, so he's just traveling back and forth to Los Angeles as needed. Thomas can work remotely for the most part, but there'll be times when a trip to LA is required. There'll inevitably be certain business meetings and eventually fashion shows that need to be attended in person. In other words, it's just a matter of time until Thomas returns and gets involved in the story again. Of course, it makes sense that Thomas will cross paths with R.J. Forrester and catch up with his younger half-brother. B&B fans haven't seen any scenes featuring Matthew Atkinson and Brian Nicoletti yet, so it'll be fun to see if they have a nice brotherly vibe on screen together. Thomas could potentially give R.J. some advice, especially if he fears troubling news is on the horizon in R.J.'s love life. R.J. already seems rather smitten with Electra Forrester, so Thomas may sense that R.J.'s eager for a romance with her. Considering Thomas' own disastrous romantic history, he might provide a cautionary tale. R.J. loves to repeat that same last name, no relation mantra when it comes to Electra. Thomas may understand on some level, since there was a time when he pounced on Ivy Forrester and had that same mentality. Plus, Hope is Thomas' stepsister, so he's got experience keeping it in the family. That said, Thomas might warn that things can get messy when you fall for people tangled up in your family tree, even if you're not related by blood. Thomas might also reflect on all the years he spent chasing after Hope, when her heart perhaps always belonged to Liam Spencer. It's easy to imagine Thomas worrying that if R.J. chases after Electra, he's just going to face devastation when she chooses Will Spencer in the end. Thomas may warn that meant-to-be couples have a way of coming back around and urge R.J. to remember that if Electra splits from Will. Bottom line, Thomas may sound the alarm to R.J. sooner or later, so stick with us for updates on his point of view. The Bold and the Beautiful recap for Thursday, January 29th, reveals that Will Spencer cried as Dylan comforted him. Ivy Forrester also moved forward with a bedroom ambush after spying on so many inappropriate moments. At the beach house, Dylan was apologetic after falling on Will, who downplayed it and acted like there just wasn't enough room for dancing. While Dylan checked on sleeping Hayes Finnegan, Will took a night swim and was using the outdoor shower when Dylan appeared. Dylan ogled shirtless Will a bit and handed him a towel as he urged her to take a night swim of her own. Since Dylan was afraid of sharks, she opted to head back inside with Will. That led to Will sitting on the floor with Dylan, who reached out to offer a comforting touch as he opened up. Will reflected on feeling isolated at boarding school when he was younger, and how tough it was when his parents were fighting. Will also talked about Luna Nozawa violating him, and how terrible he felt about everything he'd put Electra Forrester through. It was tough for Will to talk to anyone about all this, especially Electra. Will was so tired of feeling like a burden to Electra all the time. Dylan discussed the horror of hitting Luna, and how awful it would have been if Luna had still been pregnant at the time. Will assured Dylan that the baby was lost beforehand, and that he was glad Luna was gone. Since Will got weepy during this discussion, he joked about Dylan becoming a therapist. Dylan acted like they could start a therapy business together, so that brought some laughs as Ivy continued to spy outside. Ivy also watched into the bushes during Dylan and Will's outdoor moments together. Dylan conquered her fear and took a night swim after all, so Will was pleased as he chatted with her in her bathing suit. Although Dylan decided to head up to the guest room for the night, she assured Will that he could call her down if there was an issue with Hayes. Next on Thursday's B&B episode, Dylan changed into pajamas and was brushing her hair when Ivy barged through the guest room door. After Ivy called Dylan out for making moves on Will, she said she saw everything and refused to let Dylan get away with trying to steal Electra's boyfriend. In San Francisco, with Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Electra expressed concern for Will Spencer's future at Forrester Creations, considering all the drama happening with Katie Logan Spencer at Logan. As for Dylan hanging out with Will due to the babysitting situation, Electra decided it'd be fine for one night. However, Electra knew Ivy wasn't happy about the news, so Steffi acknowledged that Ivy wasn't one to hold back. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers say Ivy will continue to rant about Dylan's impropriety, so stay tuned for updates on her fury. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers and updates tease. It appears that there might be some wedding crasher chaos brewing on the horizon. Could an unexpected guest potentially disrupt the special day for Daphne Rose and Carter Walton? Carter and Daphne, however, are not exactly the most thrilling couple to watch unfold on screen, and they never have to say their romance is low-key would be the understatement of the century. Their relationship has always seemed somewhat hastily assembled, lacking the depth and substance that one would hope to see in a love story. This isn't particularly surprising for Carter, who has a tendency to fall head over heels for nearly every charming woman who enters his life. Still, Carter insists that this time is different, claiming that Daphne is truly the only one for him. Sadly, it seems that B&B has also chosen a rather uninspiring wedding venue for Carter and Daphne, adding to the overall lack of excitement surrounding their nuptials. Carter proposed the idea of having their wedding in the Forrester showroom, which is somewhat disappointing since fans are already quite familiar with that set. It would have been much more exciting if the show had chosen a more captivating venue for the wedding, but the decision has already been finalized. On a positive note, there is still potential for some drama to unfold during the ceremony itself. Everything seems a bit too straightforward for Carter and Daphne as they envision their bright future together. It's likely that some challenges will arise for Daphne and Carter sooner or later, and perhaps the trouble could begin with an unexpected wedding crasher. Last fall, there was supposed to be a storyline involving someone from Daphne's past re-entering her life. It seemed like Daphne's world was about to be turned upside down, but that plot either got scrapped or postponed. If it was merely a situation where B&B decided to delay Daphne's past shocker, then perhaps her wedding could serve as the perfect opportunity for someone to arrive in Los Angeles. We can easily picture a former love bursting in to object, or a long-lost relative showing up to witness the ceremony. While we know that Carter and Daphne are destined to successfully tie the knot, there's still a chance that a surprise or two could be in store for their wedding day. Daphne Rose arrived on The Bold and the Beautiful last year, and we still don't know anything about Muriel Hilaire's character's history. Bradley Bell revealed last year that someone from Daphne's life would pop up in Los Angeles and create chaos. We assumed he meant an ex-boyfriend or husband. But what is Daphne's secret relative is actually a child of hers. Carter Walton could be signing on for more than he bargained for when he marries Daphne Rose. Does she have a secret daughter that he doesn't know about? Keep reading to find out. Here's what's coming up next on Bold and the Beautiful. Sure, when you marry someone, you usually disclose if you already have children. Carter Walton and Daphne Rose were just discussing making babies this week. If she already had a child, she probably would have disclosed that. Daphne's actual age hasn't been disclosed, but she's definitely old enough to have had a baby when she was a teenager and given it up for adoption or thought she lost it during birth. And there's a young orphan in Los Angeles right now that looks like she could be the Parisians' offspring. We know that Daphne Rose has ties to Paris, France, but we don't know if she was born there or if she lived in the States when she was younger. It also hasn't been revealed where Dylan was born. We do know that Ms. Dylan doesn't have any family, and the rumor mill says she's related to one of the characters on the soap. The puzzle pieces are coming together in La La Land. Could Dylan actually be Daphne Rose's bio daughter? Does Daphne even know she has a daughter out there? More importantly, what is her fiancé going to say about all of this? The Bold and the Beautiful. Recap is in for Thursday, January 29th, 2026. In today's episode, Ivy Forrester confronts Dylan. Two characters go night swimming. Plus, Steffi Forrester Finnegan continues bonding with Electra Forrester. Ivy stares into the beach house window. She's shocked by how improper this all is. Dylan gets off Will Spencer's lap and apologizes. Will understands and thinks she's a good dancer. Dylan checks on Hayes Forrester Finnegan, and Will goes outside to rinse off. Ivy spies from the bushes as Dylan and Will have a conversation. Will talks to her about night swimming. Will says it's an incredible experience. They go inside, and Ivy goes back to being a peeping Tom. Dylan asks Will about his life as a child. As Will explains his childhood and parents, he gets emotional. It's not good for Bill Spencer to be alone. Dylan touches his arm. Will admits he hasn't been able to discuss the hard stuff with Electra. Dylan suddenly pulls back and says sometimes it's easier to talk to someone you're not in a relationship with. What Luna Nozawa did to Electra was so twisted. Luna took advantage of him, but Will is always good, he says. Will talks about telling Electra that Luna was pregnant with his baby. Dylan has nightmares about killing Luna. It's so much worse because she was pregnant. Will says the baby was already gone. Luna couldn't be redeemed. Will thinks Dylan is a good person and glad she's around. Ivy can't believe the improperness. John Finnegan texts. He'll pick up Hayes in the morning. Will and Dylan talk about the job situation. Will jokes maybe she could be a therapist. They laugh, which only infuriates Ivy even more. Will talks about how creative Dylan is. Will teases her about taking a night swim. Will checks on Hayes, urging Dylan to go for a swim in the dark. Will returns and hands her a towel. Dylan says it was incredible. Ivy continues mumbling that this is not proper, not proper, not proper. Calm down, Ivy. You're going to give yourself an aneurysm. In San Francisco, Steffi and Electra sip wine while they chat. Steffi misses her kids, but they are fine. Electra thinks Hayes is having a blast with Will and Dylan. They talk about Will and Steffi hopes Dylan understands what is appropriate. Electra worries because Will is a Spencer. Steffi thinks Electra is in love. Back in Los Angeles, Ivy barges into Dylan's apartment. The door was unlocked, which doesn't surprise Ivy. Dylan is confused. Ivy saw everything. She won't let Dylan steal Electra's boyfriend. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on CBS or Paramount Plus to find out what happens next.